It is a privilege to be your guest speaker for this leadership conference. Pastor Emmanuel Lamti. God is committed to redeem humankind from its fallen state. Therefore, he calls specific men and women and assign them with specific responsibilities to carry out the redemptive work on earth. I want to share with you the calling of God. And I will cite 4 personalities in the scriptures with special and specific thanks that God gave them for the work of the redemptive work of God on earth. And these personalities are Abraham, Moses, Jesus Christ, and the Apostle Paul, and relate their work as to what we are also called to do in our days. So let's take Abraham for an example. And with Abraham, we will read a scripture from the book of Genesis, chapter 12, and from verses 1 to verse 3. And out of that scripture, we'll be able to pinpoint a few things that we can cite as part of his responsibilities. In Genesis 12, I'm reading from the King James Version, it says, "Now the Lord said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I'll bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I'll bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed." In adding the verse 4, it says, "So Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran." So here, this man called Abraham was called by God to leave his comfort zone. He was told to leave his country, leave his kindred, leave his father's house, and on his way out to a place that God is going to show him. And that was the beginning of the faith generation. So Abraham is the apostle or the originator of the faith generation. He left not knowing where he was going. And that is what faith is: following God and moving in the direction that he will show you. You need not to know where you are going, your destination. I just left. And that was Abraham. And that was his calling. He was called to begin the faith generation. Now, a scripture in the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, and the 8th verse also gives us a record about him. So Hebrews 11, the verse 8 says, "By faith Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out, not knowing whither he went." So he didn't know where he was going. That's the beginning of the faith generation. People who follow God and not even having the end, because they have to trust the God who knows the end from the beginning and to follow. Verse 9 says, "By faith he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which have foundations, whose builder and maker is God. So he was looking for a city with foundations. The foundations could be related to many, many things. Foundation of faith, foundation of spirituality, foundation of trust in the Lord, foundation of obedience. And therefore he was looking for a city whose builder and maker is God. And that is the beginning of the faith generation. And he was the one called to begin that work. The next person is the man called Moses. All right. And he was also called for a different work. All right. He was called to start a different work altogether. And his own, he was to lead the people of Israel out of bondage from the place where they have lived for over 430 years. He was called to lead them out of that place into a place that God has said. And we'll find that scripture also in Exodus chapter 3, and we'll read from the verses 1 to the verse 10, and that will also give us the call of this wonderful personality. And now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mount of God, even to Horeb. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. When he turned and saw that when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Draw not nigh hither, but off thy shoes from thy feet, for the place wherein you stand is holy grounds. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face and was afraid to look upon God. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. For I know their sorrows. I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of the land unto a land and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto a place of the Canaanite and the Hittite and the Amorite and the Perizzite and the Hivites and the Jebusites. Now and therefore, behold, a cry of the children of Israel is come unto me. And I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that you will bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And so that is Moses also his calling. And for him, his task was that he should go to Egypt, where he has lived and grew up for 40 years and have spent 40 years also in the wilderness, going back to Egypt and go in and lead the deliverance of the children of Israel out of bondage. And so that is what his calling also was. He argued with God that he cannot do that. And God said, no problem. You are not going to do it. I'm going to do it. You are just a vessel that I'm going to use. And so something he could not do. And God himself took charge and brought the deliverance. And he led them out of Egypt all the way into the wilderness. And this we see the hand of God both in Egypt and also on the way for God to prove to Moses that it was he who was going to do it. that he, Moses, have no hand in it, what he has even rejected that he cannot do.